Okay, this is Uncle Nelson, and I'm back again to talk about step 4. I'm going to summarize where we are, or where we should be at this point. You may not be at this point, but these videos are available to you, and you can start at the beginning. If you're just tuning in and you're coming in, and I'm talking about step 4, you need to go back to the beginning. Nothing irks me more than to walk into Bible study meetings and people are throwing around Bible verses and jerking you around from chapter to here to chapter there. And look at this to prove that. I'm not here to prove anything to you. If you're just tuning in, go back to the beginning. Now, there may be people that say, oh, you got to see Nelson. This is not about me. It's about you healing from your spiritual malady. So go back to the beginning. You know, I look the same in the first one as I do in the second one. The only difference is sometimes I don't have my teeth in. And sometimes I wake up a little later in the day. But basically, we're trying to get you through a 12-step program. And this is the second part of step 4. Now, we've talked about being powerless in the first step and how being powerless can make your life unmanageable. And we have talked about coming to believe that a power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity. And then we talked about turning your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand God. And there's no sense in arguing about God because it is very clear that it is as you understand God. But I would like to point out to you that God has a name. And you may walk into all kinds of situations where people may want to call God higher power or whatever, but God wants to be called by name, and his name is God. Okay? So, having said that, if you have gone all the way with me, then you know in my last segment, we talked about resentments. And resentments can kill you. Is all I'm going to say. When you have resentment, it's kind of like, you know, that person or thing that you resent, it's like a glass of poison, and you just continue to drink from the glass of poison. Well, now you should be at the point of knowing that you can get to the root cause of that resentment, and you can ask God to help you to rid yourself of that resentment. If you're not at that point yet, go back to the video prior to this one and take a look at it. So now we're ready to head headlong into some more work on step 4. So don't forget, this is your story. And while we are working on step 4, I want you to consider something. Consider that you may want to write a book. Oh, and I don't mean that you sit down and just all of a sudden write 300 or 400 pages. No. But as you go along, things are going to crop up in your life. Write them down. Keep yourself a pad beside your computer. Keep yourself a pad beside your nightstand and write down the events of your life. The more you write, the more you will begin to see yourself as you really are. There have been many angels in your life, and you did not recognize them as angels. There have been many things in your life that have happened to you, and you have no idea how these things happened. But it was God working in your life all along, and you just didn't know it. Somehow, we think we were in charge, and we created all this drama that we live in. Well, you didn't. The drama, the events of your life have created you and made you the person that you are. Now, what we're trying to do is make you see the person that you are and appreciate and love the person that you are. We get to that point by cleaning house. Step 4 is the beginning of cleaning your house. It is the beginning of the true telling of your story. So stay with me. Again, we've talked about the resentments. And now we're going to talk about the fact that it is a moral inventory. It is a moral inventory. In order to take a moral inventory, I'm going to tell you a little story about John G. And I don't think that John G would mind me sharing this story with you because John G was one of those, quote, angels in my life. And I will tell you at the beginning, when I first met John G, I couldn't stand it. And a lot of times when the truth is coming at you, you don't always appreciate or like or enjoy the person that's telling you the truth. You know, somehow the truth stings. It will set you free, but it might sting and hurt a little bit before it sets you free. But the truth will eventually set you free. I was attending a 12-step meeting, and it was a meeting out of the book, The 12 and 12, which is an Alcoholics Anonymous literature, approved literature. And every time we would come to this fourth step, John G, who was very gruff, John G played a saxophone with the old bands. I'm talking about the real old bands, Louis Armstrong and those kind of people. And John G would say, before you can do a fourth step, first you got to get some Mars. What is Mars? Mars. First you got to get some Mars. What John G was saying is that the fourth step is a moral inventory. It is not an inventory of your cars, your job, your money, your property, your prestige. No, it is an inventory that has to do with morals. One of the things that I've laid out in my book is the definition of morals. And one of the things that's laid out in 12 and 12 is that in order to look at morals, let's look at the deadly sins. See, oftentimes when we talk about mental illness, when we talk about addictions, we would say addictions are cunning, baffling, and powerful. But when we talk about a moral inventory, we say, let's take a look at the deadly sins. And all of a sudden we realize that mental illness, addictions, they're not only cunning, baffling, and powerful, they're also deadly. Mental illness can be deadly unless you deal with it. We have a spiritual malady that requires a spiritual solution. There is no magic pill for mental illness. Anyone who thinks that there's a magic pill is suffering from delusional thinking. Alcohol would not cure your fatal malady. Drugs, no matter what that street drug is, and the street drugs are all put out there by the pharmaceutical companies. Yes, they are. You know, there is no individual out here that can manufacture crack cocaine in their kitchen. When you see crack cocaine in every neighborhood, poor neighborhood especially around America, you have to have some big corporation behind that. When you see heroin all over the country and people overdosing by the handfuls, the pharmaceutical companies are not only behind the heroin, they're behind the antidote. So, well, you know what? We have this drug that will keep people from ODing. When a person ODs, shoot them with this drug. Well, that's just the pharmaceutical companies making more money. No drug or no human power can relieve you of your fatal malady. So now we're at the beginning point of healing. And we're at the beginning point when we start praying. And at the beginning point when you are working hand in hand with God, and that is by taking responsibility, by picking up that pen and that paper and beginning to work. You see, if you were obese, you weigh 300, 400 pounds, and someone says, listen, I want to show you something. I want you to go to the store and I want you to buy a good pair of sneakers. And as a matter of fact, I want you to buy 2 good pair of sneakers because I want you to rotate your sneakers. And I want you to buy maybe a couple of jogging outfits. If you don't have the money to buy these jogging outfits, go home, cut you off some shorts and a t-shirt, and meet me out on the track. We're going to meet at 7 o'clock in the morning. At 7 o'clock in the morning, you show up, and you're all dressed up and ready to go. And I take you by your hand and gently walk you around the track. And maybe I'll walk you around a second time, and we're talking. We're doing it slowly. And I say to you, this is what you need to do every day. Well, the following morning, you get up and you go out on the track, and you're by yourself. And you see some people sitting over on the bench and they're laughing and they're talking, and you go and you laugh and talk with them. And you have a great time. And then you go get in your car and you go home. A month later, when I meet you, I say, well, how are you doing? I'm doing fine. You know, I go to the track every morning. Really? How have you weighed lately? Well, I went to my doctor and I gained 5 pounds. You're going on the track every morning and you gained 5 pounds? Well, yeah. See, what happened is you went to the track and you sat on a bench with your friends and you laughed and talked. You forgot to go on the track and walk. You have to do the work. You have to put in the sweat equity. The 4th step is the beginning of you putting in the sweat equity. Let me remind you to stop whining. Pick that pencil and that paper up and get ready to sweat. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to begin to think about the deadly sins. The deadly sins. First deadly sin is pride. Write down the word pride. One of the other deadly sins is envy. Write down envy, write down jealousy. Another of the deadly sins is sloth. S-L-O-T-H, sloth, laziness. Greed, gluttony. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to tell you again, if you want a copy, a free copy of my book, my email address is asitisnp@gmail.com. asitis@gmail.com. If you will email me, I will send you a copy of my book, and it is absolutely free. Okay, in that book, all of the deadly sins are listed. And some people would tell you that there are many, many more, perhaps. But for now, we're just going to stick to the 7 deadly sins. Well, actually, I list 8 in the book. And I'm going to let you find the other deadly sins. I left off 1 or 2 deliberately because I want you to have a copy of the book in your hand, because it's impossible for me to cover everything that I've covered in that book. The 8th deadly sin that I talk about in that book is acedia. A-C-E-D-I-A. Acedia is the absolute and willful refusal to enjoy the goodness of God. God has given us so much, from air to water to sunshine to moonlight. And sometimes we just absolutely refuse to enjoy the goodness of God. When you're using drugs, when you're drinking, when you're taking pills, you are refusing to enjoy the goodness of God. And when you refuse to sit here and clean house, that is a willful refusal to enjoy the goodness of God. You now have access to tools that will restore you to sanity. Stop whining. Pick up that pen and that paper and get busy and start to work. The first beginning is to pick up that pen and start cleaning your house. Ask God. Again, my email address is asitis at gmail. I'm sorry. asitisnp at gmail.com. This is Uncle Nelson signing off. Thank you for tuning in.